Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's webinar on the HERE Mobility SDK and API. My name is Moran, and I'll be adminning the session. So if you have any issues or questions throughout the hour, let me know via the chat or the question widget, respectively. All of the information here will be made available online after we wrap up, along with any additional materials that we mention, plus instructions. We'll also send out an email with all of the links to the materials, developer portal, and our Slack channel. So we're very excited to show you what we've got and see who comes up with the best implementation of the HERE Mobility SDK in TechCrunch's Disrupt Hackathon. As you probably already know, the winner will receive $6,000, a spot in the Hackathon semifinal demo pit, and innovator passes to Disrupt. So before I dive into the SDK, I want to give you a little bit of background about who we are. HERE Mobility is a strategic unit of the HERE Technologies, dedicated to revolutionizing the mobility ecosystem. The way that we do this is through our cornerstone product, the Mobility Marketplace. The HERE Mobility Marketplace is a one-stop shop that aggregates all transportation services in real time, bringing together mobility providers and mobility consumers to create holistic, door-to-door consumer experiences. One of the many ways HERE Mobility brings together these two sides of the marketplace is through our enabler layer. Developers can tap directly into the mobility marketplace through our Mobility SDK and Demand API. And as those are the things we're here to listen to, let's move on to our speakers who I'll introduce and get the ball rolling. We have two stellar speakers with us today, Adi Rom, the head of the Mobility SDK, and Roman Baron, Commando Architect at HERE Mobility. So let me pass the ball and let's get going.
As we have people from around the world, good morning and good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce you to the HERE Mobility SDK and what it can do for your application. And I actually look forward with anticipation to see what you come up with after you get familiar with our HERE Mobility SDK. Before we start looking into the SDK, I would like to share with you our Mobility SDK goal. From day one of the SDK development, our guidelines were to enable a simple way for developers to build great mobility experience for the mobile application users. The HERE Mobility SDK is available in 3 different platforms. It's available in iOS, in Android, and very soon it will also be available in React Native. The Mobility SDK contains 2 packages, Mobility and Maps and Locations. The Mobility package allows access to the Marketplace Demand API, so you can find their functions, methods like get ride offers, book a ride, cancel a ride, and we'll get into more details in the next slides. The map and Location package, as you can probably guess, provides map services and locations. And I'll also discuss it further in our upcoming slides. The Mobility package. When you integrate the Mobility SDK into your application, your users immediately gain all the benefits of marketplace consumers. How does it work? Once the SDK is integrated in your application is connected to our Mobility Marketplace. The Marketplace aggregates a variety of mobility providers. Moran just mentioned that when she spoke to you about our Marketplace. Your user can then pick and choose the transportation service that best serves his needs and preferences. As you can see, the Mobility Marketplace, you can see the mobility providers on the right of the slide. Each mobility provider represents a fleet of vehicles that can be allocated for a specific ride. Now let's have a closer look at booking a car ride flow within the SDK. So you have a user that uses your application with the SDK integrated in it. The user can choose the destination he wants to go to. And then he can get different offers from our marketplace to get to the destination he desires. Our marketplace checks if there is a taxi available. If there is, he will return a list of possible rides for the user to take. The user then can book a ride, and at this point, you as a developer need to register for ride updates to get all the updates regarding the updates of that specific ride. After the user book a ride, at this point, a dispatcher, human or software, checks if there is a taxi available to come and pick you up. At this point, it's what you're all probably familiar with. Someone's checking, hey, who's available around Fifth Avenue? And then when the available driver chooses to take that drive, you will be notified via the SDK that a driver was assigned. From this point on, you'll get all the different statuses of your user's rides, such as driver on route and ride location. Let's look at a sample application that demonstrates that flow. Here a user enters his origin where he wants to get from point A to point B, so his origin to his destination. Then there is an autocomplete where he can choose the exact address. Then he can fill in ride details, what are his preferences for the coming ride, such as number of passengers, number of suitcases, if it's a pre-booked ride or does he want to leave now. And then he can get the offers. And you can present to him a list of all possible offers returned from the marketplace, from our marketplace via our SDK. As we're looking at a book car ride flow, the user can choose the first option, which is a taxi option. And then, since you as a developer, if you remember our previous flow, registered already for the ride updates, you can present your user the different statuses of his ride, such as supplier accepted, which in this point, we have the dispatcher person checking who is available at Fifth or whatever, close to your area. And you can also update him when the driver is assigned and the next different statuses of his ride. Let's have a look at public transport ride. Very similar to our previous flow, the user is holding your application that has our SDK in. He can ask for offers to get to his destination. Our marketplace checks if there are any public transport ride available that suits your user's needs. If there is, your user can choose to see these ride details. The ride details are presented. You can present them to the user with all its different legs, how long he has to walk, if there is a subway he needs to take, if he needs to switch between two different subway lines. And let's go back to our sample app and look at this flow, a demonstration of this flow. So again, we choose the origin, the destination. Your user can add his constraints and needs. And then from the list of the different ride options, let's say he chose the public transport, you can present all the details of the ride, of the public transport ride. The different legs are presented here. You can see, you can show the type, if it's walking, if it's a train, if it's subway, the name of lines, and more relevant information for him to use the public transport to get to his destination. The Maps and Location package. The Maps and Location package provides, as expected, map and location services, such as rendering a map, searching addresses and places, drawing markers and polyline on the map, and supporting different map gestures. Let's look again at our sample app. So here you can see demonstrated the search addresses part. You can see the user types, and there is an autocomplete option. He can choose the address he wants to go to and from. You can, as a developer, draw the route on the map as a polyline. You can draw different markers to mark his origin and destination. There are different gestures supported, such as tilt, zoom in, zoom out, and all the other gestures, map gestures that you are probably all familiar with. Now that we have learned about the Mobility SDK and how easy it is to enable mobility experience within your application, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our next speaker, Roman Baron. Roman is a Commando Architect at HERE Mobility. And just like real commandos, these are the people that we send to solve our most complex technical challenges.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Adi. My name is Roman Baron. I'm a Commando Architect here at HERE Mobility, and I'll be talking about the HERE Mobility Demand API. So, Mobility Marketplace is a place where demanders and suppliers can meet each other, find offers for rides, book those rides, and manage the rides. How do they connect to the marketplace? So there are two options. If you're developing a mobile app, you would usually use the SDK. That's the preferred option. However, if you're developing a backend or a web application, or maybe an IoT device, you could use an API, the demand API directly. Now, in the demand API, you can make calls to get the query offers, book rides, follow the ride states and ride location, cancel a ride, and query past rides of a user. There are two conventions you can use to access the API. One of them is REST, and everybody knows REST. There's also an option to use gRPC. So just briefly, gRPC is a RPC framework by Google, and it allows, one of the advantages is it allows you to auto-generate very efficient clients, so less coding for everyone and less DevOps. So both ways are legitimate, and you can use any one of them that you prefer. Let's take a look at the API definition. So this is an API definition as described by gRPC. So I mentioned the different things you could do with the demand API, and you can see them described as methods here. So let's say RPC get ride offers means that's a method you can call. And this method receives as input a ride offers request message, and it returns a ride offers response message. I will show the messages in the next slide. I want to point your attention to another thing, is that there's this get line just below it. It says get/demand.v2.c2s/offers. That would be the URL you would access for RESTful API. So the verb would be get, and this is the address you would send your parameters to. Okay, let's look at the messages. So for the request, we have the ride offer request message on the left-hand side. And you can see that among the things you have to pass is a route. A route is usually just an origin and destination. You can pass in booking constraints, and booking constraints can be various. For example, they could be the number of passengers, if there's any suitcases that you want to take with you, or maybe if you need child seats, for example. You can also order pre-book rides or get offers for pre-book rides. In this case, you would be filling the pre-book pickup time parameter. If you don't fill it, you just order the ride immediately. So there's additional fields here. You can maybe sort the results differently. Let's go over to the response then. So the response is a message of type ride offer response, and you can see inside something like repeated ride offer offers. That means it's just an array of offers, right? And just below it, you see that each offer contains an offer ID, some information about the supplier, for example, a link to the logo and name, the route that the supplier thinks he would take in terms of the actual origin and destination he might be able to provide, the estimated pickup time, the estimated drop-off time, estimated price, and so on. Okay, so when I was talking about the REST URL, you might have noticed there was something about C2S inside that URL. So the thing is that when you usually give access to a single user to get offers or book a ride. But what happens when you want your backend to act on behalf of multiple users? For that, we provide a server-to-server API. So a server-to-server API allows you to access to all your users. It uses a different authentication mechanism, which would not be secure to use in a client. So in this case, use it in the right scenario. Okay, so just to recap, the mobility marketplace allows you to have suppliers and demanders meet each other, get rides, get offers, book rides, and manage the ride. You can access it via one or two methods. The preferred method, especially for mobile applications, is just use the SDK as I presented. And the alternative method is to use the API directly, either via REST or via gRPC. With that, I pass back to Moran. Thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you to both of our speakers. Just to elaborate a little bit more on what Roman already recapped on. So you've seen the Mobility SDK. This is for your native mobility experiences. And you've seen the Demand API, which has all of your needs for backend and web applications covered. But one of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you're developing is that not only is the mobility marketplace about creating door-to-door experiences for your users, but the developer tools that we've developed are about creating door-to-door development experiences for you. So one SDK, one API, supporting multiple mobility possibilities. So we've gone over the technical issues, but what can you do with our Mobility SDK? So here are a few ideas that we've thought of, but they're only food for thought. And I'm sure that all of you already have some innovative idea about how to implement mobility into your app that you're working on. But here are what are the things that we thought of, and we decided to share them. So first off, one of the examples we thought of is lodging. Many times, hotel guests will only be connected to hotel Wi-Fi. Therefore, you can use a disconnect event as a trigger to pop up transportation suggestions. Retail is also an obvious choice. Any set of proximity sensors could trigger events whenever shoppers enter the cashier position. All of us need to book appointments to our doctors. So booking an appointment to our healthcare provider means getting there also. You can pre-book their transportation while they're booking their appointment. And lastly, airline travel. Flights are never our first or last mile. From the airport, we'll need to get either to our hotel or better, back home. So we already have a bunch of questions that have come in, and I'm going to answer all of them. But whoever hasn't written in their questions via the question widget, go ahead and do it now. While we're waiting for everything to come in, I want to go over a few logistics regarding the hackathon. This is very important, so please stay tuned and pay attention to what the information that we're going to share here. So this is everything about the TechCrunch Disrupt San Francisco Hackathon and the HERE Mobility SDK Challenge within that hackathon. So first of all, what do you need to do? Register. You need to register twice. First of all, you need to be registered to the main TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon on DevPost, and you also need to be registered for the HERE Mobility SDK Challenge on the link showed here. Both of those links are included in the follow-up email that will be sent out, so don't worry about it, you'll get that information. Once you've registered on both of them, you'll receive an email explaining exactly what you need to send us. One of those items is your bundle ID or package that you need to send to mobilitydevelopers@here.com. Once we receive the information, we send you the API and secret keys to the sandbox environment in which you'll be developing your application for the hackathon. From there on out, all you need to do is develop a winning application. But keep in mind that you must submit both the application and all judging materials required by TechCrunch via DevPost by 5 p.m. on the 2nd of August at the latest. Notice that this is on Eastern Daylight Time, so pay attention to the time differences in the zone that you are in. And just in case you missed the beginning of the webinar or you didn't see the publications about this, this is essentially what our winner will get. $6,000, a spot in the Hackathon demo pit at TechCrunch Disrupt San Francisco, and innovator passes to TechCrunch Disrupt San Francisco. So, with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's joining and everyone who's taking part in the hackathon today. And now we're going to answer all of the questions you sent in. So give me a second and I'll start pulling them in and people will start answering them for you. Okay, so the first question that we have from Ed is, can the service handle segmented rides, example, bus or in taxi?
So we currently support multi-segment in our public transport, just as I showed you during the presentation. We do not support multi-modals yet, however.
Another question from Ed, does the Mobility SDK provide vehicle tracking?
Yes. When you register for ride updates, you will be notified about the ride location during the entire ride, and it will be via delegate or callback, depends on the platform you develop on.
Okay, so we have a question here from Tony, which is more on the logistics end. So, Tony, within the email that you'll get either tomorrow or a little bit afterwards, the follow-up email, you'll have the direct links to all of the documentation. The documentation you're looking at the moment isn't the correct documentation, but don't worry, you'll get it. We have a question from Lyle regarding public transportation. What data do you know how to provide, and if yes, then for what cities? So you need to remember that you are currently working within our sandbox environment, but one of the things we're doing is signing on multiple cities, so you're seeing real data, and you'll be able to use it for whatever destinations are available. Another question here from Tony. So I'm sure you already saw within all of the publications, TechCrunch Disrupt has done the hackathon slightly different this year. This year, we're looking at a virtual hackathon. So essentially, anyone can participate. Go to the TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon on DevPost. You can see all of the information regarding the hackathon and how it's taking place this year. You'll be able to get the best information regarding that there. So Tony's also asked here, can the SDK provide bus and train timing and location?
Okay, so we don't provide tables of the train times and the bus times. but we do provide this information as part of the offer. So when you essentially ask for an offer between a specific source and destination, origin and destination, that's based on this actual timing information.
Okay, so Tony asked another question here on logistics regarding winning the prize. So again, this is a virtual hackathon. Anyone who's taking place in the hackathon virtually can win. That is the entire idea here, that you don't physically need to arrive at TechCrunch Disrupt. Okay, so we have another question here from Sasha about gRPC, asking Roman if he can explain a little bit more what this is.
I'd love to. Actually, I have a slide that didn't go into the presentation, and I can show it to you. No, where's that? Ah, there it is. Okay, so gRPC it's an RPC framework. It's a piece of technology developed by Google, and it has several very nice benefits. So you define your interfaces via human-readable and machine-readable files. The ones I showed, actually, the message and service definitions I showed in the presentation. And this allows you two things. First of all, it's very efficient in development. So you basically auto-generate your clients for any language you are developing in. Also, these clients are very efficient while communicating. So essentially, they use very compact representation. They use HTTP2 for transportation, which has, for transport, this means no head-of-line blocking and multiple streams on a single connection. And that's many benefits for using gRPC.
So we have a question here regarding the SDK and what versions are supported both for iOS and for Android.
So the SDK is available in iOS from version 9.0 and up, and in Android from version 4.04 from API 15 and up.
Okay, people, that wraps up the questions that we have today. If there's anything that I by any chance missed, or if there's anything that you think of after we finish the webinar, you have multiple ways that you can contact us. First of all, you have mobility_developers@here.com. This is the email that all of our mobility SDK and API mentors tune into. So anytime you write us questions there, we'll be sure to see them and get back to you. Also, you'll be able to access via DevPost the dedicated Slack for the hackathon. We have a mobility channel within that Slack. So you can also go ahead and write us there. All of our developers are also have their notifications turned on and are waiting for any questions. So if you need any help, even if you want us, so if you need any help, or if you want us to walk you through something, or if you even just want to bounce ideas off of us, please let us know. We're here to help you with anything that you need, and we're looking forward to seeing what you come up with and how you're implementing mobility and the Mobility SDK into your applications. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon, hopefully in TechCrunch Disrupt. Bye-bye.